Ghost Rider is here. Let's get into the review. Okay, of course this is Ghost Rider from XM Studios, a statue that has many people very excited. And why wouldn't they be? I mean, just take a look at it. So we'll start off, we'll talk a little bit about the sculpt. And this piece was sculpted by Adam Ross. If you don't recognize the name, I'm sure you'll recognize some of his work. He did the Phoenix for XM. He did XM's upcoming Punisher as well. And back in the day, he did the original Deadpool premium format for Sideshow. So this guy knows a thing or two, and I think that's plain to see in this sculpt because it's absolutely phenomenal. I mean, just take a look at this bike with the frame and the exhaust pipes and the engine all sculpted out and all these little wires and tubes everywhere. I mean, it just looks awesome. And then you got this sort of plated ridges down the gas tank, and you got the same details on the back mud cover over the back tire. And the bike just looks phenomenal. And then you get to Ghost Rider, and he looks even better. He's got all the folds and the wrinkles in his jacket and his pants. Just look awesome. You got a nice leather texture on the boots, on the jacket. And then if you look close at the jacket on the collar and kind of on the upper parts of the jacket and around the back, it's got this burnt, charred look. It just looks awesome. You know, the spikes, the buckles, everything on that suit looks fantastic. And I also love the skull, just the way the mouth is open, like wide open. He looks totally fierce. This guy is one badass biker, I'm telling you. And then there's also these other sort of hidden details that you might not notice. If you look inside his mouth, you can see the spine of the neck in there, and then some of the bones of the chest are sculpted in there too. It just is a phenomenal sculpt. Adam Ross did a great job. And then you take a look at the base with all the flames and the skulls kind of embedded in the rock. There's more skulls here on the other side. Just a fantastic sculpt. I'm so impressed with this one. Next, we'll talk a little bit about the paint on this statue. When this statue was first announced, the concept of it, there was kind of a bit of a debate about should the flames be clear resin, or like they did on the Phoenix, or the painted flames. And there was a picture floating about recently on Facebook that showed a prototype Ghost Rider with the clear flames, and for me that ended any debate because it didn't look very good. It's just too much, I think, for this statue to have all clear. It made it look kind of cheap. So definitely I think the painted flames was the way to go, and they look great here. If there's one thing I can kind of critique about the flames, it's maybe the colors that were used are a bit bright, especially on this front wheel. It's almost, in certain lighting, you almost have to squint. You know, when you look at it, it's almost like staring into the sun. But you know, that's personal preference. I would have liked a little bit darker oranges and some more of a burnt color on the wheel, the front wheel. The rest of the flames look great. They kind of added some shading to it. I don't know if it's kind of a brown or gray shading to kind of knock down the brightness a bit, and it looks really cool. The bike itself, it's got sort of this metallic finish on the gas tank and the cover on the back, and you know, metallic look on the engine parts, kind of a reddish glow on the end of the exhaust pipes. So the bike looks really good. You know, the suit on Ghost Rider, you know, for the most part is just plain black, but on the jacket, when you look close, there's some brown and some gray shading and highlights in there. It really brings out all the wrinkles and folds that I talked about earlier. Looks really good. Really sharp paint job overall. I love the sort of glow effect around the top of the skull where it meets the fire. There is some painted eyes in the eye sockets. There's like a flame glow painted in there. I could probably take or leave that effect. I think it would have looked just as good if they're just all painted in black, but I mean, because his head's kind of tilted up like that, you don't really notice it. So really no big deal either way. And then the chain. Originally the chain was going to be all black, but I think some of the fans convinced the guys at XM to give it a more of a metallic finish and I think that was the right way to go. It looks really, really cool. Really great paint job. I'm really impressed. You know, outstanding paint application. I mean, um, there's no slipping outside of the lines. I mean, especially on these little zippers on the jacket, all look really, really good. I like the bone color on the skull. It's just a really great paint job. I'm really impressed with it. Turned out really great. All right, with regards to the design, I think you'll notice sort of two main changes between the finished product and the original concept sketch from Studio Hive. First, this skull on the front end of the bike. In the concept sketch, it was a headlight, and I think I would have preferred a headlight, but you know, now that I have it in hand and you can see it, and when you put it together, you'll notice that the chain is actually supported off the two horns of the skull, and you know, I suspect that maybe this was done specifically to hold up the chain. I mean, I'm speculating on that, but you know, if it was me, I'm sitting there in the design room with these guys, and it's like, wow, we could keep the headlight but get rid of the chain, or we can do the skull and keep the chain. I think they made the right decision because the chain is awesome. I mean, look at this thing. It wraps all the way around his body here and then up around his arm and his shoulder. Adds such a dynamic element to the statue. They had to keep the chain. So if that's what it came down to, it was the right decision. Number two, you'll notice the wheels are all fire, front and back. And on the concept, it was, you know, rubber tires with some flame on them. And you know, I think the rubber tires would have looked cool, would have looked really nice. But the one thing that I like about what they did with this little pinwheel design here on the tires is it adds this element of motion to it. It makes it look like this is a snapshot in time of an action sequence, like he's taking off on this bike and the wheels are spinning. I think if it was rubber tires, you wouldn't get that sort of sense of movement. They would look very static. And here, what they've done, I think it really adds a dynamic element to the statue. And overall, the overall design, I mean, it's kind of based, you know, you look on this cover here in my shirt from Ghostfire #1, it's very similar to that. You know, do the wheelie pose with the chain. I mean, I could picture him just, you know, whipping this chain and the whole thing snaking back around to wrap around some, you know, criminal or whatever, whoever he's chasing down. But I mean, it's such a dynamic statue. I mean, look at it. It's so, you know, such an action-packed statue. I love the way the bike is lifted, and as I mentioned, the wheels look like they're spinning. It's a really great design. Another thing I'll note on the back, I don't know if you'll see it, but I'll show a photo close up. They've got this license plate here. It says Ghost Rider XM, and then it's got your edition number on there. Mine's number 69, so that's pretty cool. Matching my Magneto statue. But anyways, I love the design on the statue. I think it's fantastic. As I said, the chain, the bike, everything. I mean, it just turned out fantastic. Alright, last but not least, we're going to discuss production and build quality. XM Studios is known for making, you know, these heavy feeling, very sturdy statues, and this one is no exception. For me, the previous heavyweight champion in my collection was Sandman, which you can see back here. This thing, you know, he's a beast of a statue if you've seen it or had a chance to handle it. But, I mean, by a decisive knockout, Ghost Rider is the new biggest, heaviest statue I've ever owned. It weighs probably somewhere between 45 and 50 pounds. It's huge. I mean, about 33 inches long. So that brings up two very important points. So have a spot picked out for this guy when you get it, because you do not want to be moving this one around. And make sure you got nice strong shelves, because as I said, it is very heavy. Okay, so let's talk about this piece overall. It's really, in my opinion, a monumental achievement of mass production. Just how the pieces come apart and fit together for casting and for shipping purposes. I mean, all this flame you see on the base, those are all into separate little pieces, because when you get the base, it's just the rock. So you slap that down, and then you got this guide actually that comes in the box right here, and it's got step-by-step instructions. All the pieces are numbered. They're not numbered in the box, but they're numbered here on this picture that shows you where they go, so you can easily get the right piece and put it in the correct spot. So you'll have to follow that. I will note there are a couple pieces not shown in here where to put them, and they go, you're probably not going to see it, but there's this little sort of pan right here just behind his foot, and then that connects to a piece over here. It's like a block of some kind, and that kind of slides between the two engine blocks. So keep an eye out for those two small pieces and put them on before you put the body on the bike. It'll make things easier for you. But anyways, you're going to spend some time putting this together. It does take some time. As I said, getting all the flames in the right spot, and the bike, you got to set the bike down, and then the front end of the bike from the skull down to the wheels, a separate piece. And that took me a little while to kind of wrangle that into the correct position and then sit it down onto this flame here on the front. The handlebars took a little bit of finesse to get in place, but at the end of the day, everything did fit fairly well. The head is actually a separate piece, even though it does ship on the body in the box. There's a piece of plastic you'll notice when you open it up between the head and the body. So you take the head out, take that plastic out, and then put it back on. I really like how they have disguised the brakes and the chain around the body, like in these flames here. The chain is actually split into 4 separate pieces. So you got one piece, this loop here, then down into his hand is one. Then you got another piece that goes from outside his hand into this piece of flame here, and then you got this piece that goes up and into this piece of flame, and then finally you got the last piece there. So very clever how they disguised all those brakes and how they go together. It looks like one continuous piece of chain. Now, regarding the chain, I had a little bit of an issue on mine with the chains not being shaped correctly to fit where they needed to go. So I had a little bit of a breakdown. Not gonna lie, I'm not ashamed about it. This is, one of my most anticipated statues ever, and I put it all together, and the last step is the chains, and they didn't fit. I was really upset, but my pain is your gain, because I'm here to tell you that you can fairly easily manipulate the chains where they need to go. Now, this chain here, for example, on the back, the piece that fits in his hand to there, this part here that's curved was almost straight. Like the end of the little magnet end that needs to fit in was sticking out here. It was probably about 1.5 inches, 2 inches out from where it needed to go, and no matter how I took this end and flipped it around, it wasn't fitting. There was no way. This loop around his shoulder, when I put that into his hand, the loop was actually more around his bicep, which is not where it's supposed to go. So what I did to fix that, I used a low heat on the hair dryer. You probably know the trick by now if you've been collecting for a while, and it actually worked really, really well. So what I did was I held one end in here. I actually got my wife to help me out, and she kind of held the hair dryer on there, and I just slowly started from here and started bending it with the heat, and it actually, you can manipulate it quite a bit, and everything went into place. So crisis averted. I got everything in place. My Ghost Rider is in one piece, no breaks, no damage, and I couldn't be happier with it. So just keep that in mind. If yours happens to be like mine, you can fix it, and it will look great in the end without damaging it. But be careful, but you shouldn't damage it. It was fairly easy to do. Anyways, Ghost Rider, it's a high quality piece. It might take a little bit of work to set up, but very, very good in the end. You'll be happy with it. Alright, let's wrap up this review for you. XM Studios Ghost Rider. It just turned out fantastic. There's so much to love about this statue. You know, the action-packed dynamic pose with the chain wrapping around his whole body and the mouth wide open. The wheelie, you know, that he's doing on the bike and all the details on the bike. I mean, so many extra little details like the spine through the mouth that I mentioned. You know, this guy just looks mean. He looks fierce. This is not someone you want chasing you down at night on the roads. Just a fantastic overall piece, as I mentioned. Might take a little bit of time to put together, but I think it's well worth the effort. As you can see, I mean, look at this thing. It's fantastic. I'll take a minute to just point out the print that you get in the box there from Studio Hive, based off the pose of the statue itself. It looks really, really cool. So see if you can find a way to display that alongside. I'm also just going to take a minute to show off my Marvel Spotlight number 5. That does not come with the statue, but it's my review and I'll show it off if I want to. It's one of the favorites from my comic collection. Anyways, fantastic statue from XM. Great way to end off the year for me collecting wise. I hope you enjoyed the review and I look forward to bringing you more reviews in 2017.